Welcome to the Ringer NFL show. Sheil Kapadia here with my friends Steven Ruiz and Diante Lee. It is the preview show where we're going over some big storylines in week 5. We'll have some picks. Who had the worst week last week? What are our picks this week? Are we should you just fade us? Fade all of our picks going forward. Might not be a bad strategy. We'll see. Diante, how we doing?
Feeling good, man. I think I made mention of this maybe a couple weeks ago, but as long as the beard is intact, I have not yet decided to quit my side job of being a high school football coach. So things are feeling good, man. Spent a lot of time on this Trevor Lawrence piece that's coming out tomorrow. By the time you guys are hearing this, it should be live on the site. I'm really excited to see how that does and what the conversation is. So outside of watching some really sad Jaguars film, everything else has been going great.
You got the backwards hat going too. It's like an extreme defensive coordinator look right now. I like
Dan Quinn, shout out, commit. Dan Quinn can do it and the Commanders are going to win the NFC East. Then Diante can pull it off too. You got the full hoodie on. We're ready for some fall football talk. I
had my first afternoon coffee of the season. I was struggling getting through this week, but I'm here. I'm ready. I'm ready to play.
I had the first thing earlier this week, pop a little espresso around 2:30 or 3, and then the old man couldn't sleep at night. This is the cycle. Now it's football season. Let's go. All right, let's get to the big matchups of the week. I'm starting us off. We are going to Houston, where the Buffalo Bills take on the Houston Texans. Texans beat the Jaguars last week. Bills got blown out on Sunday night against the Baltimore Ravens. First time in 3 seasons they've lost a regular season game by more than 6 points. All right, so what am I looking at here? To me, this is a who do you trust game. And specifically when the Houston Texans have the football, because I don't know what to make of the Texans offense right now, and I don't know what to make of the Bills defense right now. So this Texans offense, I think we're all probably on the same page that this is not a CJ Stroud take, that CJ Stroud is playing well. He's going to continue to play well. That's not the issue. But then you look at the numbers, and not just the numbers, the eye test, the performance of this Texans offense, and they're not maximizing what they've got on the roster right now. I mean, their early downs, we've had this conversation going back to August when we first started doing these pods together that, hey, are the early downs going to look better, or is CJ Stroud going to have to continue to be Superman on 3rd and 4th downs? And right now, they're 26th in success rate on early downs. They've got 120 penalty yards on 1st or 2nd down. They can't run the ball on early downs. And overall, this kind of shocked me. I was looking at, DVOA. I like to just look at all the different metrics. They're 20th in offensive DVOA, 1 spot ahead of the Jaguars that Diante already mentioned, the Jaguars sad film. Now that's just one statistic, but I think it shows you that they are not maximizing the pieces on offense. And so whether it's Bobby Slowick, I think it is a lot scheme related. So are they going to get it together? Can they expose this Bills defense? And then you look at the Bills defense, had been overachieving. Von Miller gets suspended this week, so he's out for 4 games. Ed Oliver added to the injury report. It's just like, how many injuries can they sustain and still be a competitive group? So that's where my eyes are going to be glued, Diante, in that early window, is that Texans offense against that Bills defense.
I'm with you on that. This is actually going to be a fascinating weakness on weakness matchup between the Texans run game and the Bills run defense. I would say, and this is something that I know Steven and I kind of talked back and forth about on Sunday, watching the Jags-Texans game. I come away from Texans games so much more impressed with CJ Stroud because of how often he is left in 2nd and 11, 2nd and 12, 3rd and 8+, and having to, avoid sacks in these obvious passing situations, having to extend plays, knowing he needs to push the ball downfield. He's not even really in positions oftentimes to be able to play the dink and dunk game in the way that we're seeing other good quarterbacks being able to take advantage of getting these soft zone shells because of the situation that this offense is in. So I don't know. And I don't know now, a month in, if there's a fix for it. We thought that bringing in Joe Mixon would be a help. Obviously, injuries have been in the way of his availability. This offensive line, even in its health, has not moved bodies the way that I thought it would to open the year. And we're looking at an offense that is right back to where it was in 2023, which is wasting first and second down and asking CJ Stroud to be a god amongst men, basically on third down situations. And then on the other side, I look at Buffalo, and for all their injuries and their issues, especially at the second level, obviously I think Matt Milano's absence was felt most on Sunday night against Baltimore. But you think about the combination of losing him and Teron Johnson. And I believe, Dorian Williams got hurt in the game as well. Their second level of their defense is really vulnerable right now. But given the way that the Texans have struggled to move the ball on the ground game, I actually think that I trust the Bills defense a little bit more coming in than I would Houston's offense.
Where are you at, Ruiz? You talked about CJ Stroud on the midweek show, but I don't know that we got deep into kind of what this offense looks like and why some of the numbers don't reflect maybe how well he's playing.
Yeah, no, I have all the faith in the world in CJ Stroud. I think I trust the Bills defense more than the Texans offense. And this goes beyond just the Bobby Slowick issue. I mean, the offensive line, the penalties are just outrageous. Larry Tunsil makes way too much money to be just committing like 3 penalties a week at this point. And every time they made a play early on in that Jaguars game, it seemed like it was set back by a penalty and that they were putting CJ Stroud constantly in these holes and he just kept digging them out of it. And even sometimes when he dug them out of it, they'd call it, it'd be another penalty and they had to take another 10 yards back. So yeah, I have faith in CJ Stroud, but I don't know if he's going to be able to overcome this offense because I think, we saw the Bills defense get exposed a little bit and Diante just talked, their weakness is defending the run, but I don't like that Ravens run scheme is in its own class. It's not something you have to deal with on a weekly basis. It's definitely not something you're going to have to deal with playing this Houston team that has struggled to run the ball so much. And I think when the Bills get you into obvious passing situations, it's a little harder for the quarterback because they're going to play man coverage. They do a lot of like 2-man on third down. I think this is a game where if you're a Dolphins fan and you watch this game and you watch CJ Stroud, that's the difference between like a real franchise quarterback who is propped up by a system and just a system quarterback like Tua. Like I think CJ Stroud's going to be able to overcome some of the stuff the Bills like to do on third and long. If he's going to have to do it over and over and over again, I think that's going to be an issue. And I think Josh Allen is a little more equipped to deal with what DeMeco Ryans is going to throw at him. And that's just because he's Josh Allen. Like he's defensive coordinator proof.
Yeah, our friend Nate Tice had this tweet that the Texans have faced the longest average distance to go on third down since week 1. And it's 10.1 yards, meaning they're losing a little bit of yardage on average on first and second down since week 1. I mean, that's wild.
Sheil, their average first down is like 12 yards to go. It's insane what's happening right now.
That's crazy. Yeah, they need, you're right. It's probably on, like, I do think some of it's Slowick related, but when your offensive linemen are just having these, penalties over and over again, that's not necessarily the coordinator. So we'll see. I mean, that Bills defense is, I don't know how many injuries and suspensions. Yeah. I mean, Von Miller, so far this season, he hasn't been a full-time player, but he's leading their team in pressures, sacks, quick pressures, and now he's gone for 4 games because of that alleged domestic violence incident from November 2023. So you add that, and then Ed Oliver gets added to the injury report, so that's never a good sign. It's just like, I don't know. Next game on the docket, Diante, I think you're up here. We're going to Cincinnati, Ravens-Bengals. AFC North matchup. Bengals are just 2.5-point underdogs, which seems light on paper. What are you looking for in this one?
I think I'm looking for the obvious here, which is the fact that Cincinnati's defense just does not have a prayer of stopping the run when it comes to Baltimore. And this is something that I've been kind of keeping an eye on. I would say that it started to become clear week 2 when Baltimore played the Raiders. They obviously lost that game, but I think if you go back and you watch the first half when that game was still kind of in question and the penalties and some of the issues they were having really didn't derail what Baltimore was trying to do offensively, you saw them really start leaning on Derrick Henry as their lead back. And I think that when we get to the Buffalo game last Sunday night, that was a manifestation of some of the things that you could clearly see them invest in. And a lot of this comes back to them kind of abandoning pistol pistol and some of the zone read stuff that they were doing with Greg Roman, 2 years ago. And then obviously going back all the way back to the time that Lamar took over as a full-time starter and actually getting more into under center downhill runs. This is by far the most that we've seen through 4 weeks since Lamar Jackson's been a full-time starter. 54 carries out of under center looks. The next closest was 34, which is last season. This is by far, outside of last year, the least we've seen of them in pistol. So they are trusting their run game. And this has really mitigated some of the issues we've been talking about with them all year long as far as offensive line. They're not going to have Andrew Voorhees, it doesn't look like, or, his status is in question. You have an issue with Daniel Faalele at right guard. So in a lot of ways, you would think, hey, if there was an opportunity maybe for Cincinnati to get some movement on the defensive interior, it would be now. But you look at the way that they're able to put extra tight ends on the field. They're getting back into 22 personnel, 21 personnel, and using these gap schemes and all this misdirection to cause problems for defenses. Cincinnati hasn't been able to stop straight ahead runs. So, you're watching them against Carolina. All Carolina's running is duo in split zone, and they're getting 5-6 yards a pop with Chuba Hubbard. So I think that this is going to be a quick game because Baltimore is going to hand the ball off, keep the clock rolling, march right down the field, get up a couple scores, and be able to sit on the ball.
Ruiz, does your boy Big, I was going to say Captain Lou, but I know everybody gets married. Big Lou. Can we get like a Big Lou special game plan? Treat this like is there anything you can do, or is that more against the passing game and against the run game? It's just like, what are you going to do? You can only commit so many bodies because their backs are against the wall here.
Yeah, I think like that's the difference between this offense under Todd Monken and the offense under Greg Roman. And we talked about this last week ahead of the Bills game. It's like, this is another defense like Buffalo that had given Lamar problems by playing a lot of quarters, getting those safeties close to the line of scrimmage. So you're fitting the run with basically 9 players. But I don't think you could do that anymore. And I think the under center layer of the offense, I know we talked about it during the offseason. You're like, oh, Derrick Henry's going into a shotgun offense. And like, we're idiots. We never considered, maybe they would just go under center because they can do that. Of course they can do that. Like, I don't know why we overthought that. And it's working. And like, at the end of the Greg Roman era, they kind of tried to install some under center stuff. I remember at the beginning, I think it was 2022. Was that the last year he was there? Mm-hmm. It was like a big deal that they were running under center. And they had like a couple big runs or a couple runs on third down. So it was boosting their numbers. And everyone's like, oh, look at their under center offense. And then it wasn't a thing for the rest of the year. But I think it's going to be a thing now because they have Derrick Henry. And like the big deal or the drawback of running under center back in the day with Lamar is like, oh, you're not getting any run game juice out of Lamar because he can't do like the option stuff. But now you have Derrick Henry back there. So now you can get explosives from that. And you can run your under center stuff. You can run play action. But I wish the Ravens would, or not the Ravens, the Bengals would do more of that. And you look at Joe Burrow's numbers. This is another thing we talked about, like the split between under center and shotgun. You look at his numbers this year. When they go under center, he's averaging nearly 0.3 EPA per play, per dropback. When they're in the gun, it's more like 0.07. I just wish they would lean into it more. They only have 15 under center dropbacks the whole season. I don't know why they don't do it more. It's an easy button for the offense. We saw them get some cheap completions against the Panthers on Sunday. We saw T. Higgins get involved on a couple of those plays. It seems to me like, I don't know, this might be taken as a negative and people might think I'm like hating on Joe Burrow, but I think he just needs to accept that maybe he should be more of a system quarterback. Like maybe he should be one of these guys, like he's better than Kirk Cousins, but I wish he would just accept the Kirk Cousins life. And I think it would just make him such a better player because he still can do that stuff where you spread it out, you empty it out, and he can read the defense 1, 2, 3. He could do that, but I think it would just make his job so much easier if he just like gave in and was like, yes, I'll just be a system quarterback for a little bit, for half the time.
Yeah, they could certainly mix some more of it in, like you said. I don't know how much they've done in the past. Like you said, 15 plays. That sounded like more than I thought you were going to say when you mentioned it. I mean, he would probably respond, not that I'm his agent, even though sometimes it sounds like I am. He would say, we got a top 5. Go look at any offensive metric. We're top 5 in the NFL. We're not the problem. Our defense cannot do anything. Our defense is a complete disaster and cannot stop the run. I hear what you're saying. There may be other ways to maximize it, and you can get even more, more from that offense. But the offense isn't like close to broken right now. I mean, the offense is running at a very efficient level. They're running the ball real well, even with those shotgun runs. They're a very efficient running team. But sorry, go ahead.
But no, I think the issue comes up this week. It comes up against the good defenses. It comes up against the defenses that are like, all right, Joe, you want to go, 10 play drives? Come and do it. And guess what? We're going to be changing up the looks every play. If you get it wrong once, like the drive is over. This is like against the bad defense, against Carolina, against Washington, you could run this style of offense and Burrow's going to be fine. But when he's met his match with the Ravens defense, he's going to meet his match anytime they play. It's going to be a lot harder, and he's basically got to be perfect. And that's what I'm saying. Like, don't make him have to be perfect. Josh Allen can do that because he's a superhuman. He's an alien. Lamar Jackson can do that because he's a superhuman. Patrick Mahomes could do that because he's a superhuman. Joe Burrow's not. He just isn't. Dak Prescott isn't. I don't think he needs an offense that has some easy buttons in it too. I say CJ Stroud is like straddling that line right now, and that's why I'm like willing to put him in that elite conversation because we've seen him overcome that stuff this year, but not everyone can, and that's fine.
Some of the stuff that Steven's noting on is exactly why this matchup is such an issue for Cincinnati. Because one thing that we've seen with Baltimore, even in as, we've been discussing and I think critiquing some of the issues that they may have had in coverage, especially early in the year. If there's one thing that they've done well, is being able to stop the run without having to blitz. They're second in the league right now in defensive success rate against the run behind the Broncos. And we know the Broncos are that high because Vance Joseph is just sending bodies as often as possible. Yeah. So knowing that this team wants to give you the soft zone shells on early downs and then be able to mix up looks and play tighter in coverage on obvious passing situations, if Joe Burrow wants to operate out of the shotgun as often as he does, and we have seen that outside of getting these yak opportunities, especially last week, having Jamar Chase, T. Higgins looking closer to 100%, knowing that a defense is going to be better prepared for that and that it's a style of defense that is built to take away those explosives. If you're not willing to get into under center run games, if you're not willing to get into heavier personnels and try to use the threat of these downhill runs to set up a play action game in the way that, Minnesota is able to use with Sam Darnold. He's mentioned Kirk Cousins. That's something that's been a big piece of his game as a quarterback as well. Then you are going to find yourself having to play at the hardest difficulty possible as a quarterback. And I think that that's going to be an issue for this team on both ends of the ball. They can't stop the run on defense. They will not commit to what would be an effective run game offensively in a way that will help their quarterback. And I don't see how they can control game score outside of the ways that they typically beat Baltimore, which is that Jamar Chase basically just has to black out.
Yeah. It feels like we're piling on here, but I'll just add another stat. I know their EPA and their success rate numbers are good, but they are 20th in explosive play rate. The teams around them are the Raiders, the Broncos, and the Jets. This is an offense with Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and they've had T. Higgins for the last couple of games. That is unacceptable. And it's been the case with this offense for the last couple of years. This isn't a 1-year problem. This has been a 3-year problem. And they have a top 5 EPA, but does it feel like it when they play against great defenses? I don't remember the last time it did.
Well, yeah. It depends. Last year, what you think of that? that Niners defense, they went up and down the field against them. The Bills last year. They've done it against good teams. I'm not disagreeing. That I think they need to be more explosive. That first version of this offense that we saw was so fun, and then they knew what was going to happen the next season, and they shifted. But it goes. We've had this conversation before. Taking what the defense gives you, no, you don't always have to do that. You still need to create explosives, or it's going to be really hard because an offensive lineman has a penalty, or you take a sack, or which they will do from time to time, or a guy drops a ball, and then it becomes harder to overcome that. So, your point with Lamar Jackson is a good one in that they have not, had this much under center play action before with him as the quarterback. They're doing it now under center play action. Lamar Jackson this year, 9 for 12 for 116 yards, averaging 9.7 yards per attempt. He's never had more than 244 yards on those throws before, and he's got 116 yards through 4 games. So you add some of that stuff in, and the Bengals, with the way their run game has been operating, I think their offensive line has played well. There really is an opportunity for that. They could potentially gash some teams through the ground, where teams would say, all right, we do have to commit some more resources here, and then you have opportunities for explosive plays. So it might not matter if they don't get a stop all game, and the Ravens drive log is touchdown, 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 touchdown. Then it might not matter, and that's very well what we could see in this game.
Yeah, why would you go through all that trouble when you could just get into empty and throw an 8-yard hitch to T. Higgins over and over and over again?
Sheil, I love you bringing up Lamar Jackson there. as kind of like as a comparison point, because if there was a quarterback stylistically that you would think would struggle most turning his back to the defense and then operating out of play action, it will be the guy who's had the benefit of basically playing read option football throughout his career. And to your point, like it's more of an additive than it does take away anything, especially for a guy like Burrow, a guy that we know is great at identifying things pre-snap, is a great anticipatory thrower when he's playing at his best. He can avoid pressure. So even if he does turn his back to the pass rush, he can square up and find a throwing lane. He has the skill set to do it. It is just a matter, I think, of him and Zach Taylor divorcing themselves from what's been a pretty rigid approach to offense.
This offense should look like the 2021 Rams offense. Or like it should look like the Stafford McVay offense when it's like going well, when everyone's healthy and they're playing well. Like that's what it should look like. They have the talent to do that, and that's what they should be. They shouldn't be this like flawed bottom half of the top 10 offense that where like 1 week they're just like blowing a team out, and the next week you're like, all right, there's like an issue here. It's disjointed. It should never be like that. This team is so good on offense.
Yeah, it's interesting looking at it. Back in 2021, Joe Burrow had 651 yards on under center play action, and they haven't gotten close to that since. I know he had the injury, and maybe that's he didn't trust the protection. Maybe that's what it came down to. He said, I'm not doing this anymore. But again, their offensive line is playing well this season, so maybe it's time to sprinkle some more of that in. Maybe it's already too late. Who knows? This is a team who, if they lose this game at home and they are underdogs at home, there may be no coming back from that. All right, we come back after the break, one more game to break down, and then we get to our picks segment. All right, we're back on the Ringer NFL show. Ruiz, we got a game on Sunday night. Cowboys-Steelers. Steelers favored. Who would have thought? Steelers favored by 1.5 against the Dallas Cowboys. What do you got?
I'm looking at Jerry Jones right now. I think this is a legacy season for Jerry Jones. Like I think he's had a rough decade where he just lets people walk all over him. He let Jason Garrett just stick around. He lost the holdout to Ezekiel Elliott, like a washed running back when he had that contract dispute. He's been taken to the cleaners by Dak Prescott every time they negotiate a contract. Like I need him to step up, and I need him to take it all out on this coaching staff. And I think this is the game when he realizes these guys don't have it. Mike McCarthy doesn't have it, because I think this is the worst possible matchup for this Cowboys offense. The Steelers are perfectly generated to shut down a Mike McCarthy offense because they're going to take away the run on first down. And this Steelers defense, they like to turn second down into like a third and long situation, like that environment where they can, they can pressure you, they can bracket receivers, they can throw their exotic looks at you. And I don't think the Cowboys are able to handle that style of defense, especially if they're playing a lot of man, because what they've been doing is playing a lot of cover one, they're not blitzing as much on third down. And I think that's when Dak Prescott is at his best, when you're trying to throw curveballs at him because he's so good at recognizing them. But this Cowboys offense had so much trouble when you could just play cover one and have that extra defender in the middle of the field to help out on CeeDee Lamb. And that's what the Steelers are going to be able to do. I don't know if you can bet on like specific players getting interceptions, but I would take Minkah Fitzpatrick over one interception on this game. I can see it now. It's going to be a pass over the middle to CeeDee Lamb, and Minkah's going to jump it and he's going to pick it off. I'm calling it right now. And I think we're going to see about 5 shots of Jerry Jones in the press box. I don't know. Does he go to the away games? Is he at the away game press box?
I think he's at every game. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
I think we're going to get at least 5 shots of him, and they're going to be losing by 14 in the second half. Dak Prescott's going to be 24 for 35 for like 150 yards in a pick. It's going to be one of those games. It's going to feel like a 49ers Cowboys game the last couple of years. And I think on the other side of the ball, like if Mike Zimmer can't do it against Justin Fields, like do the Zimmer ball, like I'm going to trick the quarterback. We're going to have guys blitzing from every angle, and the quarterback's not going to know where it's coming from. If it doesn't work against him, then Mike Zimmer's cooked too. And the fact that Mike McCarthy hired him is just a red flag for the entire organization. I think this is the week. I think we get a Jerry Jones sound clip after the game where he's like, this is unacceptable. I don't know if McCarthy gets fired, but the hot seat talk will ratchet up.
All right, let me ask you this. So the Cowboys Mike McCarthy was coordinating the Cowboys offense last year, and Dak Prescott was, what did he finish? Second in MVP. I mean, he had a great season. Their offense was totally outperforming their offense this season. It was the same coach. It was the same scheme. I'm trying to think. It was mostly the same supporting cast. I mean, little stuff changing with the supporting cast, but I don't think they were dramatic. So what is different this year about the Cowboys offense than last year?
Dak Prescott blacked out on tight window throws. He was just amazing on tight window throws, and it's not sustainable. It's no way to run an offense. Like, the reason why Dak was so impressive last year was actually like a negative for the Cowboys. It's because the offense was so hard to operate. I think,
but it was sustainable for a whole season. But he can't. But that's. I mean,
well, it fell off at the end of the year.
I was going to say that he ended up on the wrong side of variance by the end of the year. Those tight window throws started turning into interceptions.
But that's what tends to happen. Like, when quarterbacks thrive on tight window throws, like we've seen it a couple times throughout the last couple of seasons, it doesn't always translate to the next season. And I think Dak's been a little off this year. I don't think his accuracy has been what it has in the past. That's fine. It's only been 4 games. I think it will level out over the course of the season. But it just goes to show that if he's not perfect, then this offense doesn't really work like it's supposed to.
Yeah, he's attempting more tight window throws than any quarterback in the NFL. And you know what I love? When a stat meets an eye test, when you watch their games, I'm like, was anyone open this entire game? Every pass he attempts is being contested, and there's a defender in the area. I mean, this is a big game for them. I think, like, their defense is so banged up right now. No DeMarcus Lawrence. Micah Parsons is almost certainly not going to play in this game. Trevon Diggs shows up on the injury report. Their other corner, Kalen Carson, shows up on the injury report. But then I look at, I mean, I still am not a believer in that Steelers offense. I even went back and I watched that Steelers Colts game, and Fields made some fun, high level plays, but I looked at it overall, and that also did not feel sustainable for me. They can't run the ball. I mean, talk about weakness on weakness. Like, you would love to be able to just run all over this Cowboys defense. The Steelers run game has been pretty disappointing for most of this season, Diante. So do you see it like Ruiz does, that this is Cowboys blowout and Jerry Jones making wild comments afterwards? Or do you think the Cowboys can make this competitive?
Is what I'm saying.
I was about to say it, and then I'm like, I'm going to hold off, but I knew someone was going to say it.
I would say this is the kind of litmus test for Dallas this season, because the way that Pittsburgh plays offensively, they should be okay with stopping the run. They should be able to put Justin Fields in a more obvious passing situations. I think playing tight coverage the way that they would like to on third down with Mike Zimmer will fit what the Steelers want to do, what the Steelers are trying to attack them with throws on the outside the numbers. And then, knowing Zimmer and knowing the different pressure looks he can give you and mixing up and getting into some soft coverage looks, there's a chance for them to get their hands on the football in a way that I don't think that they really have over the last couple of weeks. So there will be turnover opportunities. But to me, I do think the focus, Steven is right, it is on Dak Prescott having to be perfect against a defense that, once again, is built specifically to make it as difficult as possible for Mike McCarthy's offense. And this is something that came up when McCarthy was coaching Aaron Rodgers. And what ultimately happened is Aaron Rodgers had to become so risk averse because defenses were really leaning on taking away some of the throws that this offense likes to feature in its drop back passing game. So you're going to see more checkdowns. And to me, you're not going to beat a Steelers defense down to down by trying to get yak, by checking the ball down, by throwing a bunch of screens. This defense is going to force you to try to throw the ball over their heads. And I'm just not sure that Dallas is going to be in enough advantageous situations to be able to take those chances and not risk Dak Prescott taking a bunch of sacks or putting the ball in harm's way, because the Steelers pass rush is just tearing up the field.
I have a second leg to this take.
Yeah.
I would be very disappointed if Jerry leaves Pittsburgh without doing a little tampering and just, having a conversation with Mike Tomlin. I think you watch this game and you see how the Steelers are being coached and how the Cowboys are being coached. I don't know. And you want to win a Super Bowl in the next couple of years. I would be like, hey, Tomlin, I know you're getting tired of all that talk in Pittsburgh about you not winning a playoff game. Come here. You won't hear that talk, and you'll make the playoffs. You'll probably win a playoff game. You won't have to deal with that.
I kind of like the Cowboys in this spot. I'm going to zag a little bit. I feel like Dak Prescott has a high-level game here. I know they don't have a ton to work with. You still have CeeDee Lamb here, and I think defensively they're down so many guys. But I don't know. Are the Steelers a 4-1 team to me in this spot where the Cowboys are a little bit desperate. I think Cowboys got a little bit more life to them. They haven't played well, but I don't trust the Steelers offense still. I can't get past that.
No, I think that's fair. Like, my question to you is, what does a high-level Dak performance look like? Not what does it look like, but what does it look like on the scoreboard? How many points does that result in for the Cowboys compared to last year when it seemed like they were scoring 30 points every week?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the play. Obviously, I think if they're in like they should be in the mid 20s. Can they get if you get to 24 in this game? I mean, the Steelers don't score. The Steelers have scored what, over 24? I just this might be this isn't in the picks thing, but I tweet out my like 10 things, for my 10 bets for the week, and I steal some of those for this show. But the Steelers over under for points is 23.5. I'm like, they've scored over that once this season, and maybe this Cowboys defense is so banged up that they'll do it, but their style of play, I mean, they were winning those games in the first couple of weeks by barely scoring. So I don't think it takes 30. I think it takes like sort of an efficient, like Diante always saying, don't make the big mistake. Don't get those negative plays. Have CeeDee Lamb make some plays. Can you get to 24? I mean, the Colts got to 27 against the Steelers last week, right? With Joe Flacco.
I think that's what makes it such a bummer is like, even if you get like a masterclass from Dak Prescott, you're getting 24 points. You're getting 27 points. Like, that's the difference between this team and when they've been, I think, at least viable Super Bowl contenders in the past. I don't know if I've ever actually trusted them to make a Super Bowl, but they've been in the conversation. Yeah, I don't think they are anymore. I think it's over.
Feels that way. That was a devastating Thursday night game for them with all those injuries. Not just but it was also kind of devastating to watch what is going on with this team barely beating Daniel Jones and the Giants.
I'm selling my stock in the Cowboys. I'm selling it in the Eagles, and I'm going against you with the Commanders take. Someone has to win the NFC.
Daniel Jones, you got it. You can claim Jones.
Save me, Daniel Jones.
You don't need to claim. You don't want to claim him, right? We can let Ruiz have Daniel Jones and the Giants.
Please go ahead. Yeah, have at it.
Hey, I've had a lot of decent takes built around Daniel Jones just being fine. Like, when he was drafted, I was one of the only people in national media to be like, it's fine. I mean, he's not that bad. I didn't expect to take him 6th, but like 20th would have been fine.
All right, there we go. Yeah, I don't know that NFC East. The NFC East is going to be a division where every fan base going into like week 17 is like, well, we kind of hate our team, but we still have a chance. Maybe, except for maybe those Washington Commanders. We'll see about that. All right, we move on to the picks segment. A reminder of how this thing works. We each make 3 picks every week. Anything that is minus 120 or better odds, whoever is in last place gets assigned the game of the week. Oh no, we called it the game. What was it? The game of
the slop game, I think.
Slop game? Okay, the slop game.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically you have to pay attention to a terrible game on Sunday. Now, we were each 1-2. Not a good showing by the Ringer NFL show. Yeah, we were each 1-2 last week. However, I think we decided, I can't remember how we decided this, but Ruiz gets the slop game of the week. Diante, how did we decide this? We kind of just assigned it to him?
Oh, no. I told you my long game worked out. I ate shit on week 1 after week 1 and watched that game of the week because I knew that this will come back up later on and it was time to pay the piper.
And I got the pity because I've been terrible since going 3-0 week 1. I've picked 2 things right. So Ruiz, you ended up with it. What was the game we assigned Ruiz? I forget that also.
I'm pretty sure it was it Broncos Raiders or was it Pats Dolphins? It was
Pats Dolphins.
Yeah, those were the 2. Pats Dolphins.
Yeah. All right, I'm just praying if I just want some Drake May. Give me Drake May. Save me. Come on, Gerard Mayo. Enough of this. We don't need to see Jacoby Brissett anymore.
No. All right. So maybe we'll get a little Drake May update from Ruiz on the Sunday night show. So we each went 1-2 last week. Like I said, I'm 5-7 on the season. Ruiz is 7-5 on the season. Diante is 7-5 on the season. So as a group, we are 19-17. Hey, we're still above 500. I'm not 500. Personally. I'm the weak link in the group project, but as a group, we are above 500. C's get degrees. Do kids still say that? I don't know, but we're doing. All right. Okay. Let's start. Who wants to start? Ruiz, you want to start us off? Because here's what I'm doing. I'll tell you what, I'm trying to change the juju for myself. I don't even know what 3 things I'm picking. I've got a list of 10, and when it gets to my turn, I'm going to sort of just feel, what am I being drawn to? And that's what I'm going to go with.
Desperate. This is like the desperate locker room gimmick when the team is you're burying the who didn't someone bury a football or something one time to like
give me a shovel. I'll go do it right after the show. I'm ready. Anything.
Desperate. All right, I'll start us off. I'm going to go with Jaden Daniels anytime touchdown. Because I really just want to talk about how much this guy is scrambling. It's like a ridiculous amount of scrambling, which I'm all for because he's been very efficient at it. But only 40% of his pressure dropbacks have resulted in an attempt. So the other 60 are either a scramble or a sack, basically. 52% of his dropbacks that end outside of the pocket end with a scramble. That's like by far the highest rate in the NFL. The next highest is 34%, and it's Kyler Murray. So this guy is scrambling. So I think he's going to be running this game, but I feel
like he's gotten better. I would love to see a game log of that, because I do feel like week 1, there was no doubt, at any second. I don't know. Anecdotally, I sort of feel like he's gotten better at that, but that could be wrong.
Well, yeah, I'm not hating on it. I'm just making an observation here, and I'm trying to win a bet. I'm trying to get our record over 500 comfortably. You see, but no. He is scrambling, but I went back and I watched the Cliff Kingsbury versus Jim Schwartz game from 2020.
Oh boy.
And to see how he kind of handled the offense and how he kind of approached the RPOs, because that's a big part of Washington's early down offense. And he was letting them throw the ball. He was taking away the run. They were playing a lot of zone. If you want to flip it out and throw the bubble screen, it's there all day. So I'm expecting Daniels to do a lot of that. But when they got down to the red zone, they played a lot of man coverage. They barely played man coverage in the open field, but when they got into the red zone, they played a lot of man coverage because you're not worried about space being exploited by the scrambles. So I'm assuming if Washington gets down into the red zone, they're going to see a lot of man coverage, and Jaden is scrambling his ass off, and that's the best time to scramble is against man coverage. So I think he'll score a touchdown and he'll run it in. That's plus 125, by the way.
What is it?
Plus 125.
Okay, plus 125. So there you go. You get the edge if we tie. This is actually a very interesting game for this week. You have veteran defensive coordinator. You have a defense that might not be playing at necessarily an elite level, but we know they've got that game in them. You've got this Commanders team that's just been on fire, and now they come home to the fan base is probably as energized as it's been maybe since RG3's rookie year. And are they just going to keep rolling? We know they're he's a rookie quarterback. You're going to hit that. It's not just going to be smooth the entire season. Does that come this week or does it come in a future week? I'm just going to keep kind of rolling with it. I'm picking them to win this game until that game happens. I don't want to be early on that, basically, Diante. I'm not going to go ahead and predict that it's happening this week. I like the player too much. I think he's made good decisions. They've been so efficient. What do you think? Is this the week where Jim Schwartz says, all right, I've seen these rookie quarterbacks before. We got something for you, or do the Commanders keep rolling?
Well, to me, the issue is that they're playing a style of defense that can take away what they want to do in the run game. And that's going to take away some of the ways that I think Cliff Kingsbury has protected Jaden Daniels from being in harm's way. And that was a big piece of why they struggled so much against Tampa Bay to open the year, that they really couldn't move the ball on the ground. You're stuck in these long yardage situations on second and third down. And that's where you see what Steven is saying in terms of, all right, you've got to push the ball downfield. Jaden Daniels, for as many strides as he has made, working through progressions and not being in a rush the last 3 weeks, to his point, when you does get out of the pocket, his first option more often than not is to look to run. I do think that Cleveland can really put some stress on this offensive line. Obviously, with their pass rushing attack, they move guys around. They can load up the line of scrimmage. I like the way that they use Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah as a blitzer when they're playing at their best. There's going to be an opportunity for them to really get after Jaden Daniels, I think, if they stop the run. So if there was going to be a week, I would say that this will probably be the start of it. And this is clearly, outside of Tampa Bay, the highest quality of defense that he's seen so far in his NFL career.
I have a question, Diante. As a defensive coordinator, and I know it's different going up against high school passing games and NFL passing games, but if you have a quarterback that does run a lot, but doesn't extend to throw downfield, because that's one thing Jaden Daniels doesn't necessarily do. When he runs, or when he gets outside of the pocket, he's not throwing it downfield like the other dual threats you see. If you look at the top 10 in ADOT on out-of-pocket dropbacks, it's like Kyler Murray, Caleb, Josh Allen, all the guys you would expect. And then you look at Jaden Daniels' ADOT, which is around 4.8, and the guys around him are like Jared Goff, Derek Carr, Kirk Cousins. those guys. And it's kind of odd. And it's not because he's not like a playmaker. It's because he's scrambling. And when he does throw, it's usually a designed rollout and he's hitting the guy in the flat. But when you know that, does that allow you to do things that maybe you wouldn't do against a guy who can scramble and also throw downfield?
I would say so. And honestly, and I don't think he plays the exact same way, but when you're describing a quarterback with that kind of profile, I think about Jalen Hurts. And one of the things that's been an issue for Jalen Hurts is if you send a 5-man pressure, you can send obvious 5-man pressures at him or more traditional 5-man pressures at him because you know he's going to try to get the ball out quickly. And if not, now he's going to, you're going to flush him out of the pocket. His eyes are going to drop. It becomes more of a problem for him to operate within the passing game. And he's obviously made some strides like this year, but I think that Jaden Daniels is similar in that effect to where you can send a nickel and make it a 5-man pressure. And if he doesn't get the ball out right now to his one-on-one, you can play zone coverage behind that blitz and know that, okay, this guy's going to scramble. He's probably not going to be looking to punish us in the middle of the field past like the first second and a half of trying to identify the pressure. And now you're going to play that variance game. And I think from Cleveland's perspective, you look and you say, Terry McLaurin is probably the only guy that can hurt us vertically in that type of way. And they have the defensive backfield necessary to be able to eliminate Terry McLaurin or at least mitigate his effect in a way that we haven't seen defenses be able to do to Washington's offense. So if I'm Jim Schwartz, I'm going to send every 5-man pressure that I can possibly think of out of every personnel grouping we have and see if this guy can actually meet the moment and deliver the ball, be patient in the pocket in the way that we saw last week, and scramble to throw instead of scrambling to run.
Yeah, this could be the week that support, when we look at that Commander supporting cast and go, how are they doing that the first 4 weeks of the season? I mean,
I think it's next week, though.
You think it's next
Baltimore.
week? It's the Ravens? Okay.
It's Baltimore, yeah. It
could be. Yeah, the Jaden Daniels scramble and the pressure stuff and all that was a big conversation when he got drafted. So far, he's 15th in pressure to sack rate. He's got the highest EPA of any player on scrambles, and he's 7.8% sack rate for a quarterback like that. Like, you'll absolutely live with that specifically as a rookie.
Yeah, the big difference between him and Hurts is that like he can run around these guys.
He's a dynamic athlete. Yeah,
he had a scramble where it wasn't like a big open field scramble. He just kind of like exited out like the left side of the pocket, and he reached 20 miles per hour like before he hit the line of scrimmage. Usually, when you see those 20 mile per hour runs, it's like Derrick Henry on the 87-yarder. It's like a long touchdown pass. He's getting to 20 miles per hour in like 10 yards. It's insane.
Yeah, no, it's been fun to watch. The next 2 weeks, we will see. He goes up against Cleveland and he goes up against Baltimore. Man, if he comes out the other side of these 2 games and is looking like the same guy, we'll be talking about sort of different territory for Jaden Daniels. All right, let's take a break. We come back. We get to the rest of our picks. All right, we are back on the Ringer NFL show. Now, Ruiz, are you still drinking that? I see you taking a sip. Is that coffee still at this time of evening?
Yeah, I'm still going.
Now, will you be able to sleep at a reasonable hour, or do you need to stay up like especially late tonight?
No, it's football season. My sleep schedule is ruined beyond repair. I'm not fixing this until March, April. I mean, it's out of control. It's not football season until I've pulled an all-nighter.
My favorite, I love any conversation involving like caffeine intake. Like, what's the optimal, like when I'm trying to watch West Coast NBA basketball, NBA playoff games, like what's the optimal time for me to have that afternoon, evening coffee where I'll be able to stay up, but my night will not be ruined. Normally I can sleep anyway, but I don't know, body wasn't used to that afternoon espresso earlier this week and I got all messed up. All right, Diante, what do you got? What's your first pick for the contest?
So my first pick is going to be for Aaron Rodgers in this game against the Vikings, going under 225 passing yards. And I think that obviously
I got the same exact one.
You do? You have the same one? Okay.
I'm going to let you cook instead.
I mean, the weather was clearly a mitigating factor last week against Denver. But when you go and you look at like success rate and EPA numbers, like out of Aaron Rodgers' over 200 starts in his career, it was like a bottom 20 performance for him against the blitz. And it was so clear early in the game. This wasn't just, hey, an old guy is taking a beating in the pocket and just kind of losing, the twitchiness and his reaction time over the course of a game. It was clear from blitz one that Aaron Rodgers was not comfortable with dirty pockets, with people being behind him that he couldn't see. And I think that that's going to force the ball out of his hands quickly. And to me, if I'm Brian Flores, that's what I want more than anything. I want to make sure that he and Nate Hackett can't get to any design double moves to Garrett Wilson. If you're going to get the ball to that guy, it's going to be underneath, and he's going to have to create yards after the catch, in a crowd. And that's something that we saw Brian Flores and the Vikings defense do to Brock Purdy a couple of weeks ago, was running these like 2 deep 5-man pressures where, as a quarterback, you have got to be on point. You don't have many opportunities to be wrong in the progression. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers is more experienced and has a deeper library of being able to beat the blitz. But to me, looking at how he was moving and trying to extend plays to the lack thereof last week, I can't imagine when he's watching film against Brian Flores that he's thinking, oh, all I've got to do is sidestep a guy and I can buy myself an extra half second to push the ball down the field. This is going to be check down city, a lot of screens, a lot of, bad offense, more or less, when they're playing against Minnesota this week.
Yeah, I would honestly take the over on his completions, even though I would take the under on his passing yards. It's been like over 1,000 days or whatever since he's thrown for 300 yards in a game. I think people are keeping track, and it's up into the 4 digits at this point. And I think we've talked about Flores when he doesn't respect the opposing quarterback. I think we're going to see that in this game. Like, usually you come across a veteran quarterback who's seen all these blitzes before, and you're like, oh, maybe we'll dial it back a little bit. Rodgers is getting blitzed at the 9th highest rate in the NFL right now. Like, he's not seeing that respect. And low key, he's kind of been bad against like these coverage disguises his whole career. Like, when you switch the picture on him post snap, it's kind of given him issues, even going back to like his best playing days in Green Bay. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is like a sicko game from Brian Flores and he's just throwing the book at him. And like Diante said, it's not that he doesn't look like he can handle it. It looks like he's not interested in handling it, like hanging around long enough in the pocket to find answers that actually will hurt the defense rather than just trying to survive the down.
I mean, we talked about the Cowboys, how it feels like the pass attempt is never going to an open receiver. Have the Jets had an open receiver? Also, every completion, right, yeah. It's either a go ball that he places beautifully, or it's a little slant where the defensive back is on the wide receiver's back. Like they're doing nothing schematically to get anybody open. I mean, it is wild watching, even like because I thought Rodgers had some high level throws even last week in the rain against the Broncos. I mean, it was an ugly offensive performance, but there were probably a handful in there where I'm like, wow, he still got that. Not everyone can make that throw. But overall, I'm just like, what? I mean, the Nathaniel Hackett of it all just keeps showing. Nathaniel Hackett versus Brian Flores.
So funny.
It's just, I mean, this is a wild coaching matchup to send to London.
I bet you Brian Flores could tell him the plays he's calling before the snap, and he still couldn't do anything about it. This is one of the biggest mismatches. I would like to see those two like talk and converse and interact.
Well, listen, I was going to say Nathaniel Hackett might be available to join us on the Ringer NFL show before long. I don't know that Brian Flores will be able to.
And then I feel like the opposite on the other side of the ball. Like I think Robert Saleh is a good coach, but I think this is like the exact matchup where he usually gets toyed with by the offensive coordinator. Like Kevin O'Connell, I think is just going to be able to scheme up open receivers like Kyle Shanahan did in week 1. I think it's just going to happen all game long. So I was trying to figure out which bet I should pick. I ended up with the Rodgers under 225, but I feel very comfortable taking the Vikings here and laying the points.
So you think Sam Darnold's going to London against his former team? And I know you're not going to say Sam Darnold's the story, but nationally the story will be Sam Darnold goes to London against his former team, the New York Jets, and the Vikings are 5-0 as they come back to America. You feel good about it?
Yeah, he's going to run into a couple sacks. He's probably going to throw a pick, and no one will notice because he probably throws 3 touchdowns and they're 5-0. Like I said, he's getting a good at it.
I'm curious about that Vikings offense. I don't know that they're going to have a lot of success. I keep waiting. I think is going to be a week where the mistakes are going to catch up to them. I don't know what to expect. The London games are always weird. But so are you making that one of your official picks, Ruiz, or are you going to a backup one?
I'll just take the Vikings.
You're taking the Vikings. Okay.
Yeah, I'll change my pick so we don't have overlap because I did have Rodgers under 225.
Vikings are 2.5 point favorites. So Ruiz has Vikings 2.5. Diante's got the under. on Aaron Rodgers. All right, I am going to Los Angeles, and I'll do a back-to-back here because I've got 3 picks from this game that I like. Packers-Rams. Packers are 3-point favorites going to Los Angeles. I'm looking at which 2 I like the most. I'm going to stick with the 2 player props. Let's start with the Packers. Josh Jacobs over 62.5 rushing yards. I'll make this snappy. The Bears were able to run the football on the Rams. If the Bears can run on you, I think Matt LaFleur is going to be able to scheme up some runs against you. So 62.5 rushing yards for Josh Jacobs and the Packers. I like that. And then I'm going to go Matthew Stafford over 21.5 completions. I think I said it to Ruiz during the midweek show that I rewatched that Bears-Rams game, and I'm going, Rams easily could have won this game. They're going up and down the field. The red zone is killing them, which sometimes it's you just don't have the guys. Sometimes you wish you maybe had a scrambling quarterback, or sometimes there's randomness to it. Like, are they going to be this bad? If you look at the non-red zone snaps, I mean, they're 5th in the entire NFL in success rate with this group. I have not. Where are you? I don't think we've done let's do a little temperature check. Where are you on the Jeff Hafley experience, Ruiz? Because I have not looked at this and been like, this is a definite upgrade over what they've had.
I think it's been replacement level so far. Like I think they've done some good things. Like I think they play like how you should play modern pass coverage. Like they're passing routes off and doing stuff like that. They're not just like sitting back and letting you dissect them. So that's good. But I don't see any like, oh, this is tough to go against. It's not like going up against Spags or Brian Flores where you're like, we really got to think about this. Think about what we do on a weekly basis when we're going up against this defense.
How about you, Diante? Have you gotten your eyes on that Packers defense closely or not yet?
I've watched a little bit of them. I would say the takeaway I've come away with them is almost like they've traded one issue for another. You know, I think that, you know, whether it was Pettin or Joe Barry, they always had issues in coverage. This year, I think that they've gotten some decent sack variance, but when you actually look at like pass rush, snap to snap, they kind of have issues, I think, getting the most out of a defensive front that I thought would be talented enough to really dominate on that end. I mean, I think that that's caused them problems with being able to get teams off the field in a way that they need to, you know, and that to me is something that I've had my eye on. I think that we still need a little bit more time for them to adjust and figure out how they want to use personnel. But I would say that Steven's probably right. This is probably closer to like league average replacement level, defensive play calling more than anything.
Not a disaster, not Joe Barry. That's how we will describe it so far. Yeah, they've been mediocre to below average. I don't trust them. I don't trust them against a quarterback coach combo like this. I think the Rams are going to move the football here. So I'm taking the Stafford over on the completions.
My third pick is from this game too.
Give it to us. You're up.
I'm taking the Packers -3, and I would be comfortable bumping that up to -6.5 even. Like I think they're going to win this game by a touchdown at least. I don't understand this line at all. Like the Packers. I think Matt LaFleur is being disrespected by Vegas with this line. Wow. He's going to pick this defense apart. They might score 40 if he allows it for it. And with the problems the Rams have on offense, like league average defensive coordinating is enough to stifle them a little bit. So I think this can get out of hand. And if Matthew Stafford has to play catch up, I think that makes his job so much harder. And then I'm going to take it a step further because I want to make this take about Matt LaFleur. If we're doing a coach draft, I'm picking a coach to build a team from scratch. I'm taking Matt LaFleur as my head coach over everyone in the league. I think he's the number one guy I would take in the league. And honestly, the only person that I would think about taking over him is Sean McVay, is the other guy in this game. But this just goes to show you how far the Jimmies and the Joes can take you. X's and O's can only take you so far.
Wait, what about your boy? I think Kyle Shanahan is not in the conversation for you for this?
No, he's too...
what more would this Kyle Shanahan have to do to be in there?
Not blow these games at the end, not make these conservative decisions, not be so loyal to these quarterbacks that end up losing him these games too. That's another thing. At least these like Sean McVay and Matt LaFleur gave in to the talented quarterback. They're like, I don't care about my system. I want the talent at quarterback.
Brock Purdy's playing lights out right now for the 49ers.
I think the real issue is that Kyle Shanahan's getting a little too gray in the face. He's got a little bit too much presidential aging.
He might not last. Yeah.
His health. I think the Stevens being a bit ageist here.
that might be it too. That might be it. Like Matt LaFleur is like clean cut. He's got like the finely trimmed beard. His skin looks nice. He hasn't been weathered. Like, I don't know. He doesn't look like a football coach. He's not aging in football coach years like the rest of these guys.
I mean, this is a role reversal episode. I have so far tried to convince you that Dak Prescott can beat Justin Fields. I've tried to convince you, why is Kyle Shanahan not among the guys you would want to build a team around? I feel like I'm the one doing the Matthew Stafford overs. What's going on here? We're only in week 5.
I don't know. Are you going to have like a Jalen Hurts criticism coming up next?
I've had those. The Ringer. That's a nice plug. That's a nice plug for the Ringers Philly special. Go listen, and you can hear those. All right. So your official pick though was Packers -3.
Yeah.
Packers
I already got my plus bet with the Jaden Daniels. I don't need to bump it up to 6.5, but I would be comfortable bumping it up to 6.5.
All right. Diante, what do you got?
For my next one, I'm gonna look at the Arizona Cardinals versus San Francisco 49ers, and I'm gonna take Arizona to cover in spite of how bad this offense has looked. I think that they're getting 7.5 points. But to me, I think that the way that San Francisco has kind of had to play because of pass rush attrition, because of some of their issues with stopping the run, I think that plays into the ways that Kyler Murray can really attack defenses. So you're going to see a lot of quarters. You're going to see a lot of cover one. This has been a little bit of a cold stretch for me with Arizona. And I think a lot of that has just been them trying to push the ball down the field and them just coming up empty more often than not. I think that this is a good week for them, getting a little bit of a softer front to get back into the run game stuff that actually makes this offense as unique as it is, and then setting up the play action game to be able to take those chances deep downfield and away from Fred Warner.
Yeah, and Warner's got that injury as well. So we record this early, so we don't know if he's playing or not. Obviously, that would have a big impact on the game if Fred Warner's not in there. Yeah, Kyler's had a sort of weird season. Starts off hot. I don't think he's played well the last couple of weeks here. And that Cardinals defense continues to, against good offenses, have a lot of trouble. So if the Cardinals are in this, Ruiz, I feel like this game's getting to the 30s pretty easily.
Yeah, I'm over the Jonathan Gannon defense. I was talking about this yesterday with
we need a list.
Join the team, boss.
We need a list of just who is it? Who are you crushing? We've had. I mean,
like the Cardinals are 1-3. I feel like that's
I'm with you.
30th in defensive EPA. They sucked last year, and I think you said it. Like, oh yeah, they played 3 high safety. Who cares? Like, yeah, it's just like in theory, it's a fun defense, and it's fun to watch them do all this stuff, but it never works. That's the thing that no one talked about last year. It's like, oh, they're doing all this cool stuff, but it never works. And like that's the case this year. I think me and you called it before. Like, this is the hipster team. Everyone's like, this is the sleeper team. No, they stink. And the only good thing they have is Kyler Murray. He's the whole team, besides the receivers, of course. The receivers are very good. But that passing game, I think, like you said, Kyler's hasn't been playing well of late. I just think that's the situation he's been put in, where he has the degree of difficulty is just so high for him right now. I think he's been playing really well. I would take him as the better quarterback, the better performing quarterback in this game, of course. I think he's been better than Brock.
That's crazy. That's absurd. That is absolutely absurd.
Oh, my God.
So that's absurd. Brock Purdy has been playing so well this season. He's got no Christian McCaffrey. They're not using any play action. They're throwing the ball downfield. They're getting no yards after the catch, and their offense is putting up monstrous points every week. If you put Kyler Murray in that Niners offense this year, you think that Niners offense is playing better than it's playing right now?
Yes, I think they beat the Vikings.
I disagree completely. I think that's absurd.
They beat the Vikings without a doubt in my mind. There's no doubt in my mind they beat the Vikings. That's the difference
Murray's missing throw after throw. I mean, Kyler Murray's reputation, it's every year, oh, he's talented, and then he has these 2 games everyone gets excited about, and then you look up at the end of the year, and they haven't done anything, and their offense isn't good. I mean, honestly, it's year after year with him.
Yeah, he doesn't have Kyle Shanahan. He has Drew Petzing and Jonathan Gannon dictating the terms for him. That's the difference. Like, when you watch the 49ers offense this year, I know they haven't had their superstars in all the games. Does it feel like it? Are you like, oh man, Jordan Mason's not doing enough? Are you like, oh yeah, all these receivers are covered. They are covered, or he is throwing a lot into tight windows, but that's because he's choosing to throw into these tight windows.
He's choosing to throw into tight windows, and he's completing passes, and they're putting up points. What are we talking about here?
He's holding onto the ball for 3.3 seconds. It's like the highest time to throw in the league. And he's creating pressure for himself. He leads the NFL in pressures created by the quarterback.
Unbelievable.
And then he's not even getting pressured. He's not even getting punished for holding the ball.
So he deserves credit for that. If he's holding the ball and then making plays, we usually are giving a quarterback credit for something like that. You just said he's got the second highest percentage of tight window throws in the entire NFL. I mean, he hasn't had McCaffrey. Debo's been in and out. Ayuk hasn't done anything. I mean, that's crazy.
I will say
Purdy's playing well. I haven't been the guy who's like, Kyle Purdy's underrated. To say Purdy isn't playing well right now is absurd.
I didn't say he wasn't playing well.
But Kyler Murray in that offense, there's no evidence that the offense would be operating at a higher level with Kyler Murray right now.
The evidence is that he's a better player.
He has a better physical skill set. It doesn't mean he's a better player.
Oh my God!
All right,
Jimmy G was it was second in EPA over like a 4-year span.
This is nothing like Jimmy G. You just pointed out how it's not like Jimmy G. He's pushing the ball downfield. He's creating when plays aren't there. Like it's a totally different offense than Jimmy G. They're using no play action. I mean, Purdy should be your honorable quarterback next week. They're not using play action. He's dropping back and he's hitting receivers.
It's the same effect though. They're getting cover 3 and cover 1.
Like, I think right now what we're really seeing is that I would say right now they're actually probably not playing that much differently stylistically. These have both been quarterbacks who have tried to push the ball downfield a bunch. I think that Brock Purdy has had the benefit of connecting downfield. I don't know how much credit I explicitly give to Purdy in those situations because you do have the Juwan Jennings blackout game where he was winning quite a few, 2-on-1s, 1-on-1s deep and over the top. I will say this is the best that Purdy has looked so far in his career,
no doubt,
as a quarterback. I don't think there's any argument against that. The only thing I would give pushback on is I do think if you swap situations, I think that the numbers will probably look pretty similar. I think that Kyler Murray will be connecting on his deep passes at the same rate that you're seeing Brock Purdy do with San Francisco, and I think you would see Brock Purdy struggling in Arizona to push the ball downfield, similar to the way that Kyler Murray is right now.
Those tight window throws, they're measured at the catch point. They're not measured when he throws the ball. So it could be the quarterback is throwing those players into tight windows by throwing those looping curveballs he throws. Some people don't get the benefit of the benefit of doing that. Like Justin Herbert can't throw a 15 mile per hour corner route. He has to throw it at like 50 miles per hour or he doesn't have a chance of completing it. It's easier to throw to an open guy accurately than it is to a guy with a defender in his hip. That's just common sense.
We're jumping through a lot of hoops to say that not every quarterback gets the benefit of playing with Juwan Jennings and Jordan Mason. I mean,
I saw the.
What are we talking about here?
I
know the coach is good. I agree, the coach is good. McCaffrey, it has not. The supporting cast hasn't been there. It's not like he's got a great offensive line.
Jordan Mason is second in rushing yards.
Okay, that's second in, but who would point to Jordan Mason as like a top 5 running back in the NFL? No one would have done that before the season.
Right. It's then why do we do it with Purdy? Like with Jordan Mason, we're like, yeah, it's a late round guy. Of course, you plug him into the Shanahan system. We don't have to embellish how good he is. He's playing well, but we don't have to call him a top 10 guy and base our whole personality around him. I don't know.
I see a quarterback who is playing. I think is the best he's looked so far. I think in the past, the criticisms have been valid, and you could easily make the argument that he's getting propped up by everyone. But this year, you're getting more data when there's less pieces around him. I mean, I don't know. And you look at it, and he's playing the best football of his career. Their offense is moving the football at a very efficient level. I'm not saying it's not Kyle. I understand Kyle Shanahan. It's going to be easier to play for him than Drew Petzing. But I don't know. I like the player whose team moves the football, who completes passes, and they score a lot of touchdowns, not the one whose accuracy has been erratic, and it's going to be like year 9 and we're going to be like, oh, well, he's got the good physical skill set. It just hasn't happened yet. So I don't know. I firmly disagree that if Kyler Murray were in this offense this season, this version of Kyler Murray, that they'd be operating at the same level. All right, I thought we were going to do Purdy next week. I'll be honest. I had in my head next week, I feel like we're ripe for a nice little Purdy argument. Now I've become the Purdy guy. I don't know what the show has done to me. I've become the Purdy guy. I've become the Jaden Daniels guy. I don't even recognize him. I'm going to look in the mirror later tonight. I'm not even going to recognize myself. All right.
You're on the right side of history.
So much of your life
Jaden.
Railing against the football hipsters. You're slowly becoming everything you hate.
Exactly.
Purdy is not. No. Purdy is good is not a football hipster take. That's more of. Right. Yeah, that's no. Right. I will not agree to that, Diante. I reject that.
I agree. Purdy is playing the best football of his career. I'm just saying Kyler Murray's a better football player than him, which I don't think is an outlandish take. And I think he's been playing better this year.
All right. I don't even know where we are with the picks. I blacked out. You said Juwan Jennings blacked out. I blacked out yelling about Brock Purdy. It's this point in the week. I mean, I've reached my limit. I got nothing left to give. Have I given all my picks? Have you given all your picks? Where are we? I have no idea.
I know I have one more. I think Steven might have given
yours.
all of his.
I need to look at which one I'm going to pick for my last one. So go ahead, Diante. You're up.
My last one feels almost insane to say given where the number is at, but just based off of vibes, I'm taking this one, and that's going under 36.5 points for the Dolphins-Patriots game. I don't know if anybody actually watched the Monday Night Football game because the Lions and the Seahawks were on and it was a significantly better football game, but that was some of the saddest passing I have ever seen from an NFL offense. And I never use a Q word. I will just say some of the Dolphins offensive players looked a little uninterested in taking the beating necessary on these screens, on these deep end breakers. And obviously you're dealing with Tyler Huntley, who, has stuck around the league for a while, and it's a credit to him. But this is really not an offensive fit for him as a passer, trying to throw the ball with great anticipation and timing in the middle of the field. And I don't think I have to say much about New England. If you watched them against San Francisco last week, that is an offense that looks like it hurts from the beginning of the snap to the end, and they have not been able to move the ball at all.
36.5. What an over-under that is. Unbelievable.
Yeah. I really appreciate how you talked
around.
That's
a big 10. Oh, that's a big 10 total.
It really is.
From. It's an Iowa game.
When I was at Penn State, I've told this story before, all the buddies come up for the weekend. All my friends from Penn State, Iowa, 6-4 final score. They're like, this sucks. This experience sucks. This football sucks. Why'd you choose to go to college here?
2 safeties is good ball. I don't care what anybody says.
I went to the Penn State Illinois game a couple of years ago when they went into like 9 overtimes. I don't know why I bought those tickets. I hate Big Ten football, and I somehow went to that game, and I got what I deserved. They scored. I don't even know if they scored a touchdown in that game. It was terrible to watch. But like Tyler Huntley deserves or belongs in a game like that, and not in an NFL game. I honestly don't know how this is the best option. How is this the best option? And how was Skylar Thompson the best backup option? Yeah. Coming into this year, it's not like we didn't know Tua was injury prone. Like there was a chance that he would get hurt or miss time. Maybe it's a salary cap thing. Maybe they just can't afford it to have
they can afford a backup quarterback. Your first instinct is spot on there. I mean, because we saw it after.
Malik Willis was available.
Yeah.
Before Green Bay got him, that would have been a guy that you could have done some things with the running game. There are plenty of quality backup options that are much better than Skylar Thompson. And that's a guy they've had in the building for years now. They knew that wasn't good enough.
Yeah, I mean, years ago when Tua got injured, remember they went out and they signed Mike White like right away. Oh, you got to get after Mike White had that thing with the Jets. So like they knew it then. I guess they just figured he was healthy last year. Now he's going to be healthy forever. That's ridiculous. I mean, completely ridiculous to put yourself in this situation when you've got veterans on the roster and your head coach is supposed to be able to scheme it up with lesser talent to go into the season with this backup quarterback situation and now look like one of the worst teams in the league is absurd. All right, I'm just going to finish it out going with a game we already talked about because I have no more analysis to give here. We did Cowboys-Steelers. I'm going to take the Steelers under 23.5 total points. I know the Cowboys have nobody on defense. I just wonder if that Steelers offense is equipped to put up 24 plus points in a game like this where, again, I think maybe Dak can complete some of those 6-yard passes and make it a small possession game and maybe just 1 or 2 Justin Fields mistakes. So I've got Steelers under 23.5 total points. All right. To recap, I've got that one. Steelers under 23.5. I've got Josh Jacobs over 62.5 rushing yards. And I've got Matthew Stafford over 21.5 completions. Those are my 3 picks. Ruiz, what do you got?
I got Jaden Daniels anytime touchdown scorer. I got the Vikings -2.5 over the Jets. And then I got the Packers -3 over the Rams.
Diante?
And for me, I've got Aaron Rodgers under 222.5 passing yards against the Vikings. I've got Arizona getting 7.5 points against the 49ers. And I've got the under of 36.5 points for Dolphins Patriots.
I love that. I'm going to be looking at that Dolphins-Patriots score. Now I have a reason to go check it out. All right, those are the picks. A spirited preview show. I like it. The yelling, there's more yelling. There's more, you're wrong. We're getting into it. The juices are flowing. I love it. We will be back on Sunday night. Brock Purdy, if you're going to have a terrible game, don't make it this week. All right, can you just have it? I set you up. You're facing Johnny Gans and the Cardinals. Everybody scores on this team. Don't make me look bad, Brock.
Don't get outplayed by Kyler Murray.
I'll do it for this episode. Thank you to Stephen Ruiz. Thank you to Diante Lee. Christopher Sutton producing, as always. Additional production supervision by Conor Nevins, Arjuna Ramgopal, and our friend Dan Comer. We'll be back Sunday night breaking down Cowboys, Steelers, Texans, Bills, and all the rest of the NFL action. Until then, go Phils, and we'll talk to you on Sunday night.